Former President Donald Trump has joined a list of U.S. presidents, former presidents, and presidential candidates who have been the target of assassination attempts. According to data compiled by Congress, 7 of the last 9 presidents, and that includes Trump while he was in office and current President Joe Biden, have been the targets of assaults, attacks, or in this case, an assassination attempt. Out of 18 recorded attempts on the lives of presidents and candidates, all but 2 involved firearms. And in every case but one, these assailants acted alone with no broad conspiracy. Joining me now is Quentin Wilber. He is the Associated Press's Washington Investigations editor and author of Rawhide Down, the near assassination of Ronald Reagan. So, thank you for joining us. The last time that the nation witnessed an assassination attempt on a U.S. president was Ronald Reagan in 1980. Talk to us about the historical significance of that event in terms of how it changed the country and how it gives us context for understanding what we witnessed yesterday.
Well, there are a lot of parallels between what happened in 1981 and yesterday in Butler, Pennsylvania. In terms of like the historical significance, that assassination attempt, Reagan came within an inch. The bullet was lodged an inch from his heart, a split-second decision, and a split second from dying, right? He lost more than half his blood that day. In that, the American public really had a lot of sympathy for Reagan. He built up a lot of sympathy. Obviously, he has been shot, but also it built a bond with them because they heard about how courageous he had been. For example, he was cracking jokes in the emergency room before being wheeled into surgery. He saw his wife and said, "Honey, I forgot to dock." Reprising a line from Jack Dempsey, the heavyweight champion in 1926. He joked with his advisors before going into surgery. He gets into surgery and he wants to calm everyone down around him. So he dramatically takes off his oxygen mask, looks at them and says, "I hope you're all Republicans," to all the doctors around him. The public hears this and they truly realize that, this guy was pretty courageous. He couldn't fake that stuff during this event, being shot and nearly killed. And it really built a bond with the American people that lasted through the rest of his presidency. Reagan believed he'd been spared for a purpose and dedicated himself and his presidency to the threat of nuclear weapons. And you can see that through all 8 years of his term. What we don't know now, there was already an iconic image taken by an Associated Press photographer of Trump pumping his fist, blood smeared on his face, the American flag flapping behind him. Will this resonate in that same way? Obviously, Trump wasn't nearly as badly wounded. Reagan spent 13 days in the hospital. Trump spent a few hours, was hit in the ear, not the chest. And, we're much more polarized now. So what I'm looking for in the next 2 weeks is to see how does this resonate with the public and not just his core supporters, but everyone.
Yeah, I want to dig into that more with you. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about how this happened, because much like President Reagan in front of the Hilton, former President Trump was in an open space. Also, the last 2 high-profile active shooting incidents at political events were in open spaces. I'm thinking about the 2011 shooting of Gabby Giffords at a supermarket parking lot in Arizona, and of course the 2017 shooting of Representative Steve Scalise. That was at a congressional baseball game practice in Virginia. Is it possible to secure public areas for these politicians, given the risks?
Well, there's always a give and take. So in 1981, John W. Hinckley, who wanted to shoot the president and actually thought about shooting Carter, who wasn't really motivated by politics. He wanted to impress Jodie Foster.
Right.
He got within 15 feet. 15 feet. That's a distance of a 3-throw in basketball. He got within 15 feet, unscreened, right? So that event, they push everyone further back. Everyone's further back. Now you can't get into an event after 1981 with the president without a magnetometer. You have to be scanned and everything. In this case, there's clearly something went wrong, because no one should have a free sight line on the president from 150 meters or so. That's how far away this guy was. And they're going to be doing some serious examinations, having pushed them back as far as they did and allowing this to happen. So there are similarities in that way, too. The gunman here was not screened. He wasn't in the event, right? Nor was Hinckley. Hinckley was behind a rope line meant to separate. It wasn't even a press line to separate the public from there. You're talking about the baseball game. The practice, those were obviously lower level. They had protective detail there, which saved their lives. But in this case, there's also the push and pull always between the candidate and the Secret Service. If the Secret Service had its way, these would all be indoor events. Everything would be have a magnetometer. No one would get anywhere close to anyone. But that's not what the politicians want.
Yeah.
You know, Reagan wanted to get out and go explore the world. Remember, Bill Clinton would jog on the mall, right? So there's this, what do you allow, what you don't allow, and it's a risk assessment every single time they go out.
And Del, as promised, I want to get back to this place in history and what it might portend for the future, because as you mentioned, it can go one of two ways: a cooling of the temperature or a back and forth and an escalation of heated rhetoric. I'm thinking about Reagan cracked several jokes. You mentioned two of them, but it had the effect of taking down the temperature a little bit, of allowing the nation to breathe and see the president was okay. He was cracking jokes. Given what you're seeing now, do you think that our nation will head towards our better angels?
You know, it's much different times now. Social media, everyone thinks they have an opinion. Everyone's piling on. I'm on text change with relatives and friends who think this is a conspiracy already. You know, the world is a much different place than it was in 1981. And Reagan understood his place in the world, and he was fundamentally a nice person, right? He was not, you know, he was a tough politician, but he also understood, like, he wanted to connect with people and how to do that. And, you know, he was a veteran of the movie industry in a way. Like, you know, President Trump is also an entertainer. He understands that.
Right.
They come at things differently. So I have a hard time thinking, and we're so much more polarized now than we were in 1981, that I have a hard time seeing this playing out like it did then. Like, for example, Reagan was shot. He's in the hospital. The first visitor to see Reagan, who was not an immediate family member or a member of the administration, was his political rival, Tip O'Neill. And they prayed together.
A powerful reminder of politicians setting aside the blood sport of it when actual blood is involved. Quentin Wilber, thank you.
Thank you.